I have been following her for a while, so I don't think she needs an introduction. But she is a teacher, a content creator with 2.5 million followers. She is a good troublemaker, being someone who informs and mobilizes the public on the issue of education. And she happens to be a PA native. So we on Team Red Wine and Blue Pennsylvania are thrilled to have Mrs. Frazzled with us.
Hi, thank you so much. That intro was so nice. I am so happy to be with you guys. I love this organization. I have run the gamut for the things that I've been doing. I was a kindergarten teacher, and then during COVID lockdown, I went home and was stuck at home, and that's when I started my TikTok. And I was talking about teaching and the journey of teaching kindergartners on Zoom and how crazy it was. And then I started doing that. Really quickly, it turned into advocacy. And then, as you can hear, I have three kids. So I went out on what my students call eternity leave. I went out on maternity leave and I have not gone back. And that's what I'm doing now is being out of the classroom. So I am on Facebook. Oh, you're asking for them, not me. Um, yes, I am on Facebook though. Okay. So right now, my biggest thing is I talk about being like frazzled about the state of our union because holy smokes, look around. Have you ever seen a more teacherly face? Beverly, I love you. Thank you. Um, right now, it's just there feels like there's so much at stake. And I appreciate that we're here talking about not just problems, but we're talking about solutions. We're talking about how we can get involved at the local level. And the local level is going to be so important. It's always been very important. But when we're having attacks at the federal level, it's more important than ever that we're engaged in the local level because that's where we can really A, make a change and B, be protected the most. Our public schools are going to need to be protected at the state and local level when there are attacks from the federal level. So, if you don't know, what's at stake right now, there's a lot of budget cuts. There's a lot of things that affect students, like Medicaid and SNAP being cut. That will affect their families. It'll affect kids. So when we were teaching, we were constantly buying supplies out of pocket, and that's the same. Um, and this year, it was about $900 a kid for kids to spend on school supplies. And when they don't have resources in classrooms, obviously a huge issue. So we're also looking at book bans and censorship. Fun fact, not fun fact, 11 people nationwide were responsible for 60% of the book bans in, I think it was 2023. You
Mhm.
guys will tell me. But this isn't a grassroots movement. This is a coordinated campaign to like make this happen. And we're also seeing attacks on teachers. There's been a very long-standing kind of smear campaign against educators and teachers, talking about, calling them horrible things. And that's really tough. It's really tough to be teaching in that environment when you're already stretched thin and then you're feeling disrespected. And we're seeing it on the national stage now. And that's really hard for teachers. And,
Mhm.
two-thirds of parents do not want the culture war fought in their classroom. And that's on both sides of the aisle. We really don't have any desire to make this the front lines of the culture war be our kids. But, you know, education is the front lines in a lot of ways. Education is where people can kind of shape the voter pool. They can shape the narrative. If you look through generations, you can see that broader political issues show up in our classrooms. A lot of stuff that we still talk about now is from the Cold War era. Like we're seeing a lot of, it really makes an impact and it's a lasting impact. So, um, that's why we're here.
I actually grew up in the religious right, and so I'm kind of coming to this work from that. And I often give presentations about Christian nationalism, and people are shocked at the fact that the leaders of this movement were talking about specifically destroying public schools back in the 1970s and 80s. Like this was all things that I was hearing. I actually was involved in I went to a fundamentalist school, and I also was involved in homeschooling. And so all of the curriculum things that we're talking about, like especially like the civics curriculum that was just recently put out there, and all, working with all of those groups, like that's all familiar with a curriculum that's already been out there. It's just in certain groups of people, and now they're trying to make it be across the board. So that's horrifying for me. But but I know that you're really actively trying to sound the alarm about the fact that that this is, not something that everybody wants, but it is what a minority of people have wanted for a very, very long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because I was not able to talk about this when I was in the classroom. You're afraid of going online because there are a lot of extreme people online, and it's a very different experience to have your personal address posted on the internet versus like your school's address on the internet when you're a teacher in the climate that we exist in.
Right.
I wasn't afraid of losing my job. I was at a very supportive school always, but I was afraid of like scary things happening. So now that I'm out of the classroom, I feel a great sense of responsibility and privilege to be able to talk about things, because if we listen to teachers, we wouldn't be in half of the mess that we're in. But I fear we do not listen to teachers. And teachers are often not allowed to be on school boards. So it's super
Mhm.
duper important that we're like all hands on deck and listening to teachers, and teachers should be at the table for
I
legislature,
think that
school boards, and all types of things. Um, and that's kind of where my work is now. I really try to make that like my North Star when I'm making content or talking to lawmakers or whatever.
as someone who works in education, what's the impact when budgets get slashed or resources are taken away?
I mean, it really is felt very immediately. There's not really any lag time. And we're seeing that with things like the federal grants and budgets that are being cut now. I mean, we're seeing that reflected in programs. Like over the summer, there was a lot of stuff cut from like after school programs and summer programs. That happens right away. They can lock those dashboards down right
Mm,
out the jump when an executive order is signed or whatever it is. So we're thinking about, well, I was going to talk about the fact that teachers pay out of pocket a lot.
right.
But the reason that I talk about that is because schools just don't have the resources, even with the budgets allocated as they are. So
Mm,
when schools cannot fill in these gaps, we see teachers pick up the slack because
Mhm.
what else are we going to do? Like, that's always my thing. I was like, well, we need pencils, and I can't put in a request for them and wait for 2 weeks for them to come from the store. You know what I mean? So these
right.
budgets, you're going to see the impact immediately, and you're also going to be putting a lot on the shoulders of the community and parents and teachers who are trying to step up. And everybody's already stretched so thin, you know?
Mhm. And I mean, I think we especially saw, like, I know in Pennsylvania, when we saw in 2021 some of these boards that got flipped to being, saving the taxpayer money. But what we're seeing now, 4 years later, is that there was this gutting of things from the inside as far as programs in terms of staff not being up to, the right amount in class sizes going up. And so, I know in my district, the technology department was just gutted. And there's no explanation except to say that we're saving money, but at whose expense, right? And then, the teachers who have these programs set up are wanting to keep them going. And if the funding gets pulled, they're putting in their money in order to keep the things going because the kids are counting on them. And so that is a tragedy.
Yes, it really is. And the thing about school boards is that like 80% of races are uncontested.
Mm,
And groups like Moms for Liberty know that, and they're very, very organized. And it's my dream to get us as organized as they are, because what they do is they find an uncontested seat, like a local target. They'll get in the school board and they can often gut it and flip it. So they can like instate their own people, and then they can take a really heavy hand in things like curriculum and funding and all of that stuff that people think, oh, the Department of Education at the federal level, they're the ones that probably handle things like salaries. You see it all the time. People are like, these administrators make too much money. We got to get rid of the Department of Education. No, that is that is state and local level that does stuff like that. So, yeah,
Yeah.
they're very, very organized in how
Peop-
they move in and affect things.
Yeah, people don't realize how much power is at the local level.
So much.
Yeah. How do you see harmful policies, especially like
Mhm.
anti-LGBTQ plus rules affecting real students in schools?
The impact is really huge because first of all, kids come into school talking about what their parents are talking about at home. So if they have caregivers at home who are talking about stuff in very inflammatory ways, like LGBTQIA plus people or issues, that comes into schools it, immediately. And it's really sad because this rhetoric that is spread by extremist groups or the right wing, when they target LGBTQIA people, they're targeting the kids in that, the kids that will grow up, come out, or whatever. They're internalizing that. And also, kids are seeing that rhetoric normalized and that bullying normalized. So we see a huge uptick in bullying. And it's really, really sad. I mean, kids don't know how to handle it. And if parents and caregivers are not modeling the right way to engage with communities, um, it's like a little mirror. The kids are just little mirrors of what's going on in society. And at the same time, you're seeing these kids are really depressed when this kind of stuff happens and their
Mhm.
personhood's being attacked or their rights are being attacked. Um, and then there's also the gutting of mental health services at the same time. So, that's a huge issue. If there's an uptick in bullying and a lowering of mental health services and budgets, that's like a recipe for disaster. And those harmful policies are really at the forefront of that.
Yeah, and one of the things that, I've been talking about a lot with my members is that this whole idea of parental rights, what we're really, doing is taking the rights away from the parents of those kids. And then in addition to that, this idea that those policies are protecting protecting children, when it's really what it is it's protecting adults who are ill-equipped to deal with things that are outside of their very narrow worldview. And so, and I'm speaking from experience, having grown up in that environment, and also being told a lot of those same things. So, thank you for that answer.
Lots of people feel frazzled and overwhelmed, and I think we've already touched on it a little bit, is this is strategic from the other side. They want us to be overwhelmed and disengaged, and that's why, Moms for Liberty and these extremists are able to take over school boards, because only 5 to 10% of people actually vote in these elections. So what would you say to someone who feels like they don't have time to get involved in these elections? How would you handle that?
I would say, I'm not going to be pushy about it, but I will give you some facts and figures. Most school board members spend about 10 hours a week on the job. And if you're concerned about like funding, of course, you can do fundraisers, you can be whatever. But 87% of the races cost less than $10,000 to run. So I think people think in their minds like, oh, elections are so, so, so expensive. They're not as expensive as you think. They're not as time consuming as you think. And a lot, like I said, a lot of these seats are totally uncontested. So you might not have a super high lift to get in there. um, uh, but I understand feeling frazzled, for lack of a better word. Um, and I think from somebody like me, action is the way that I find hope. It's the way that I make sense of things and lower my anxiety. Um, and I think that's great if that's you, if that's, that's not everybody though. Granted, I do think that people on the right are expecting us to be tired and anxious and not show up. And I think if you can find your way to get involved, we all have a different way. We all have different strengths and different things that fire us up and different ways that we can lower our anxiety. If you can
Mhm.
find a way to civically engage and plug in a way that works for you in a sustainable fashion, I don't think you have to do everything. I think you can do one thing. So if that's helping your friend who's running or just being a super vocal supporter at the school boards, a champion for teachers, whatever. That's small actions really add up and it can look different for everyone. So if you don't think you have time, maybe try a different entry angle. And somebody said once that advocacy is like a choir, and I love that. It's like when somebody's out of breath and can't sing anymore, somebody else is going to sing, and then it's just one continuous note. So it's okay to be tired, but it's not okay to check out, if that makes sense. So that's what
Yeah,
I would
no,
say.
that definitely makes sense. Our founder Katie often says that,
I love
you
it.
know, because it's okay to be tired, but you can do one thing, and especially with these local school board races, they're very impressionable. So it might just take, one vote or one conversation to turn the tide. So yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
In your opinion, why do you think extremists have been able to gain a ground at school board meetings?
Because they are always there. They are loud, they are consistent,
Yeah.
they are a big group. They are well funded, yes, but I think the consistency is even more of a reason why they gain this ground that they do. And obviously, like I said, I keep saying a lot of these seats are uncontested. It's not that they represent like the majority viewpoint, it's that they just are very wise about how they go about this. They are very organized. They have like playbooks of how to run, what to do. They have this big organization that says these are our approved candidates and they all mobilize as one. They're like a little amoeba. So
Mhm.
I think also a lot of these like people who run for school board on the right are privileged individuals. They have some nannies, they have some free time, they got
But
money.
also, some people, their kids aren't even in public
Right.
school,
They're not even there. The
right?
kids, they don't even have kids in school. So they're just like, it- it's just, I think they play by no rules, I suppose. And I think a lot of us get in our heads about like, well,
Mhm.
I can't do this because XYZ, a million reasons. They have no reasons. They just are really, really present.
Mhm.
And I do think that that consistency is one thing that we could emulate. We could show up every single month and we could organize every single month. And I think that pressure is really great. And I think the visibility is great. If you have a school board that you really enjoy and you're vibing with them, amazing. You don't have to go in there and yell at them every week. You could just go in and be there. Your presence is more powerful than I think you realize. And, the only thing to beat them is to be just as organized, I think.
Yeah. Because we have to do the electoral work, but then after that, there has to be this parental advocacy for the policies that we know is not only going to support public education, but is going to support equity. It's going to support, the accuracy of curriculum and all these things. That is, at the community level, we can safeguard our communities from extremism. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So, I like what you said about, you don't have to do everything if you just pick, one thing. So what's one small but powerful thing that every parent, grandparent, or community member can do to make a difference this year?
I think, oh, one thing.
Or, hey, no, give us all the options.
I think two things. If there's nothing else that you can do other than if you have a kid or a kid that you know in school, find out who their teacher is and what you can do for them. Like practice centering that teacher, just be their person. When they do something amazing, tell the principal, be
Mhm.
there for them. If they need you to staple books, amazing, you're on it. Hey, I need my bulletin board changed. I got you, girl. Like whatever it is, whatever it looks like, if you could support that teacher, that's huge. But maybe you don't have kids, maybe you don't know any kids, that's totally fine too. I think the other thing that you could do, anybody could do, is find out who's running for school board in your district. I'm so serious. Just learn their names and their platform and talk about it. If you're like at a friend's house, chat about like what's going on in the school board, like normalize the conversation. I think that could create a ripple effect that could really engage people, because there's this idea of like social capital that we talk about, where it's like it has to be cool to do something. It's the reason that people follow influencers. But every single one of us has a sphere of influence. Every single person does. And if you can like lock in, you're an influencer. If you're really passionate about something, what's cooler than that? You know, just chat about it. And I think spread awareness in that very organic way. To me, like that would make a huge difference.
Yeah, that would be called friend to friend organizing, which is what we did not plan this, but that is our whole MO over here at Red, Wine, and Blues. So we will be talking about that later. That is amazing. All right. So you use humor to shine a light on really serious issues. So why do you think it is important to laugh while we are fighting back?
For me, and I think a lot of people, if we don't laugh, I think we're going to burn out. And I think that's why a lot of us in like nurses and teachers, we engage in a bit of dark humor at times, where we're like, you have to find moments of laughter, and especially in these like times that we're living in. um and a humor doesn't mean that you're not taking things seriously. Quite on the contrary, you don't want to check out, you don't want to burn out, so you're finding ways to keep yourself going. And when I was a theater student, because I learned that things are funny for a handful of reasons. I literally took comedy class, which sounds so crazy, but one reason is like you recognize the truth in what's being said, or you see yourself in it, you recognize yourself, or exaggeration, absurdity, like caricatures are funny. When there's surprise is funny, and when it's like you're building up, and then you like something is funny and then you're like it breaks the tension, that's funny. I think all of those things apply to the climate that we're in right now, and also like what I do in my day-to-day life to keep myself going. And I've just been very fortunate that like the way I help my brain calm down through humor is actually helpful to other people too. They're like, okay, I needed to laugh at that. That's great. Um, and it also connects us and it disarms people. People aren't expecting you to be funny. I have people every once in a while who are like full far right that are like, okay, I don't agree with literally anything you said, but that's funny. And, it reminds us as well that like joy is resistance. We do a lot of other versions of resistance. We can't just stop at joy, but like that is part of it. They want us to feel very anxious and checked out, and finding the moments of joy and laughing, huge. There's also a lot of research, you guys, that people have fought fascism with humor and laughter. And there's all these different examples of different protests that people have done that are humorous.
Yeah.
And it's very cool. So if you're like a research nerd like I am, check that rabbit hole out, because it's
Yeah.
quite interesting.
Well, it's so funny that you talked about like your friends that because my husband and I laugh about it all the time that we were like super conservative and didn't think that you could vote Democratic like that's basically what we were told growing up. And we loved Jon Stewart. Like we loved The Daily Show. We
Yeah.
watched it religiously back when he was hosting it. Like I'm dating myself, but like that's the weird cognitive dissonance. But humor does cut through. Like we knew he was funny, even if we were told that we weren't supposed to like the things he was talking about. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I'm sure you get that as well. Um, all right, thanks for that.
Yeah. So the next one is when your platform started with you talking to these adults with power in your kindergarten teacher voice, it was more focused on political satire. But since the election, you've seemed to really shift more into educating the public and activism. So was that a conscious shift? And what motivates you now with regard to your content?
I had a really hard time in November.
Wow.
I was having like a lot of life stuff in November, and I just was like not sure that I could do it. Um, and like I said before, the way that I like combat my anxiety is through action.
Mhm.
And I had just found out that I was going to have my third kid. And I was like, this is not good. I was like, things are bad. So, what do I do? And all I wanted to do was talk about how important public education was. And people were very much like, can you please do a skit? Can you please, like, I need a skit. And I'm like, Mama can't do it right now. Like, I'm not feeling well. Um, so, you know, w- it was just the good thing about working for yourself, I guess, is you can do that. And the good thing about my audience is they kind of follow me and have trusted me for many years now to
Mhm.
I have morphed and changed a lot. So I'm about to start doing the Gentle Parenting Your Relative season because the burrs are upon us, October, November, December. So I'm really excited.
Very timely.
Yes, I'm feeling more like I'm in a place to do that now. Um, but my North Star, like I said, has become talking about education and what teachers need and what teachers are doing. And it just so happens that schools are a little microcosm of society. So I get to talk about a lot of issues. Um, but like people who follow me are going to get that. That's what you're going to get 24/7 is education, things that affect us, things that affect our kids. And I'm going to make fun of people a lot for my own sanity.
Yes. Yeah, no, but you have to do that. And I think yeah, I think a lot of us felt similarly in, in November, in December, even, early in this year, like what are we gonna do? And I think, yeah, doing more advocacy and as you said, doing, getting active helps your anxiety. I think that is a common thread for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I mean, I followed you for a while when you were doing that satire, and it felt like a very seamless, appropriate shift given the context of what we were all dealing with. So if you're feeling like that was just like what you personally needed, I think that a lot of us also needed that as well. So I appreciate that you went into this advocacy space because you are doing tremendously important work. But if you could send, all right, I'm gonna do the little devil on your shoulder, and then Claire's gonna be the little angel on your shoulder with our last question. If you could send a message directly to every extremist school board candidate in Pennsylvania this year, or across the country, but since you're from PA originally, we'll talk about it from that perspective. What would you say to them?
I would say that we can see that you are more interested in division than unity, and that in a lot of ways you are more interested in gaining privilege and power than you are actually helping.
Mhm.
And we are going to be in your way. Um, that's what I would say. We're going to be in your way every step of the way.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
love it.
that's great because I feel like the theme is obstruction, like that, like from that end. It's like we want public education to thrive. We want kids to, achieve. We want, opportunities to expand. And then people just like sit like a big fat boulder in the way. And so, I mean, I think like what you're saying, we're going to keep pushing on that boulder until it's no longer in our way.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so I have our last question of the night, and hopefully it is uplifting. And so it is, what gives you hope about parents and communities right now?
I am loving how I am seeing my fellow white ladies rocking it and showing up right now. I gotta say, we really took it from the pussy hats and the Converse and the pearls. We have gone through all these iterations, and I am seeing people so mad and like using that like feminine rage to like affect change in huge ways. Like I have seen women thrown on the ground by ICE agents. I've seen them dragged out of town halls. I have seen them chasing people and like yelling at them. I'm just like, wow, like look at what we're doing. It gives me such hope, the courage that people are exercising, and that it's coming from this place of like, not anymore. Like, absolutely not. Um, I think that gives me a lot of hope because I'm not just seeing it online, I'm seeing it IRL, which is great. I think it's really easy online to like get engaged in advocacy, but it's really hard to do it in the real world. And I'm seeing it. And, you know, it's really, really hopeful and inspiring to me. And when I feel just dismal about what's going on online, I get offline, and that's where I find my hope is like out in the community. I mean, LA has also really been rocking it. You know, we had the National Guard down the freeway and all kinds of crazy stuff. And we just were like, this is ridiculous. We're done. And
Yeah.
that gives me hope. It makes me keep going.
Yeah. You know, I'm sure you've heard of that content creator, the with the We Do Not Care Club. Have you heard of her? And
Hmm.
obviously that's like a very specific you know, community. But I think about the fact that I think that just women no longer care about the perception, but
Yes.
we care very deeply about the things that are affecting our people. And so when you put those two things together, it is extremely powerful. So
I'm going to
thank you
interrupt
so
for a
much.
second, and
Yeah.
Mrs. Frazzle, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
Could you do one of your, when you talk to a kindergarten student about what happened today with the press conference about acetaminophen?
Oh my gosh. It's okay, friend. Take your time. Do you want to sound it out together? Acetaminophen. Good job, friend. Shine on, shine on.
Thank
That
you.
was so
It's
good
just,
for you.
it writes itself. It really
It's
does. For a
does.
second, I was like, it might be hard. I might not be able to do that on this. And then you asked me that, and I was like, oh, yeah. What a dig dog. Holy smokes.
Oh,
Exactly.
well, thank you so much. Do you have any last words for us for just, you know, moving into this? We got 6 weeks left until election day. I know that all of us are, you know, it's hard because I think that there are days that we feel really fired up, and there are days that people just kind of want to like put the covers back over their heads. But we really got to work every day in our communities to get people motivated that this is not over, and that these elections matter. You have any parting words for us in that regard?
No, I just love this organization. I love you guys. Everything that you're doing is like my favorite. And we're gonna get after it. Got it. We're gonna make it happen.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Frazzled, again. As a, you know, a Western PA girl, and my mom's a public school teacher. She's here today, and a product of public schools. I really thank you for all your work.